Theme today is that every person, that's you, that's me, everyone, has been given the same amount of time per day to plan. We can plan for having a successful day, or we can plan to have a failure day. Again, now failure is a default position. If we do absolutely nothing, we have planned to fail for the day. Some of us wake up, take a shower, maybe, let's hope so, right? And then maybe head into the kitchen to make a cup of coffee to wake us up. Maybe we grab an egg or an English muffin or a bagel. And then it's out to the garage or the driveway so that we can jump in the car and head off to work doing what we hate to do. Am I right? Some come home from a day's work in the job we hate, and we sit in our recliner, we turn the TV on with the remote, and we watch the news, which depresses us. Why do people allow others to ride their emotional well-being up or down like a Ferris wheel? It's beyond me. Let me give you a story. On July 22nd, 1993, I went to the hospital for a simple 4-hour operation, a gallbladder removal. I mean, it's a 4-hour thing, so they told me. Well, when I woke up, not knowing how long I was out cold, but it had to be for days because when I did wake up, my preacher was there holding a Bible in one hand and a black rose, I'm not sure the significance of that, in the other hand. And my friends were gathered there in the room and some relatives that were from out of state. So I had to be out for a few days at least. Apparently, I had been DOA on the operating table when the gallbladder surgeon inserted a trocar instrument. That's a long instrument that they use to stick in your stomach, and then they blow it up somehow so they can look in there with a scope and go and do the gallbladder surgery. So that trocar instrument blade somehow failed to retract, and he had cut the artery that goes from my ticker down to the right leg. Who knew? So blood came pouring out of the hole that he just inserted that trocar into. Code blue, rang out across the hospital, and fortunately, a vascular surgeon from India, actually, had been on duty. He rushed into my operating room and quickly opened me up with a 10-inch slice. He repaired the artery, and I got my pulse back. I was told that I was dead for some unknown period of time, and that the prognosis was so bad that they had to call in my family, my relatives, my friends who were there in the room when I woke up. Let me get a photo of that scar, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. There it is. And I discovered something. I couldn't eat anything because the moment I did, I threw up this green liquid stuff into a bucket. And I mean, I filled the bucket. After days of that, the hospital had finally determined that my bowels were probably cut too. Sure enough, 3 places were nicked. So they had to open up that scar again, that 10-inch scar, take my guts out, and find the leaky bowels. I was finally released after 18 days in the hospital, weak as I could be. I had trouble walking just a few feet. I developed what's called a post-operation depression. The symptoms of that include these: a feeling of extreme tiredness and fatigue, which I had, difficulty sleeping, loss of appetite, weight loss from no desire really to eat anything, bouts of crying, ideas of self-harm, loss of interest in daily activities, low morale, and a lack of motivation. I hate to tell you, folks, but those symptoms seem to be found in many people today who have not gone through post-operation depression. Many people suffer a lack of motivation. They can't sleep due to constant barrage of bad news about the economy, or they watch political upheaval in our country, or they see night after night of violence in the streets, lootings, burning of businesses, shootings, and mayhem. I remember my bouts of crying too, believe it or not. I mean, it's true. You're a guy that's told as a kid, don't cry. But I remember the bout of crying while I was in the shower one day. For some reason, I thought about the doctors removing my intestines from my body to find and sew up 3 bowel cuts. And then I pictured them putting those intestines back into some sort of order and sewing me up again. I started to cry like a baby in the shower, and I couldn't stop for the longest time. I had a huge Honda Goldwing. Let me go get that before I give you the story of that. That's the suicidal attempt. So that's the bike I had. I call it a bike. It's a big, giant Honda Goldwing, 1500 cc's, the biggest one they made. And I remember being out on the highway one night doing 80 miles an hour, not caring if I hit a bridge abutment or a truck. I didn't care. That's how depression gets to you in that part about hurting oneself. So I get it because I lived it. And I couldn't walk for weeks, but a good friend used to come to my house and push me to walk my 2,600 foot long driveway, blacktop. But I could only make it a couple of 100 feet at first, but after a while I could make it further and further. And it was a year later, August of 1994, when I finally snapped out of the blue funk that I called it, that I was in for a whole year. Now, I don't know how or why I snapped out of it, but I know I was always upbeat and positive for my whole life, always. And to go through that kind of blue funk for a year, it was horrible. So I know what some of you go through, but some go through this because you just have a lack of any drive. You hate your job. You don't plan for your day. You plan for failure, unfortunately. I was very happy when I got my positive back. It gave me hope to keep it as long as I possibly could. It was then that I developed a new outlook on life, on the brand new life apparently that God had given me, because I could have been dead on that table. In fact, I was. To tell you the truth, that's about the 3rd time that death has knocked on my door. One time I was in a lake in Foxborough water skiing and holding on to the rope, and I went under the water. Stupid me, I forgot to let go, or panicked, I don't know what happened. I forgot to let go of the tow rope. So I learned this, that water going into your face at 40 miles an hour is probably going to fill your lungs up, which it did. And then apparently I passed out there, and a friend of mine that was on the boat with us, thank God, did the old squeeze routine and pumped the water out of me. So that's the 2nd time. 3rd time I'll get to in a little while. That experience, if you will, caused me to do things a little differently. I always did or said things when people were around me that I knew would either please or upset them. This means that I allowed how others would conceivably view me by what I said or did. How many of you still do that? You try to please somebody by saying the right things and making the right moves and all that kind of stuff. Well, I then vowed back then, 1994, when I come out of my blue funk, that I would never again allow anybody to push my emotional well-being up or down like a Ferris wheel, and they now had to accept me as I was, or not. But I realized that it wasn't my problem. It was their problem if they thought well or ill of me based on what I said or did. What I say or do is my freedom to say or do what I'm going to say in front of people. So I learned to be direct, to be honest, the whole thing. I decided to listen to anybody who spoke with me or I spoke with them and not judge them no matter what they did or said. I decided to trust people again. And if they failed, I wouldn't hold it against them, but I would secretly make them earn that trust of mine back by being honest in their conversation with me. If they learned, great. If they didn't, then I would just shut up and, listen to them. But I wouldn't really take them into my inner circle, if you will. I decided to talk with anybody, male or female, about anything they wanted to talk about without any reservations whatsoever. This is what I learned from my trial, if you will, of that operation. So it was then that I decided to start talking to some women that I knew, to ask them a lot of personal questions about life and how they viewed it. And that led to some very revealing things that I never knew before as a guy. I wanted to learn. I knew what guys thought were stupid sometimes, but I never knew really what women thought. So I began to ask them that stuff. And anything was on the table, anything at all. From sex or drugs to rock and roll, as some say. I think that's a song somewhere. They led me to write my first book of 13 books called Friendships, Lovers, Huggers, and Others, which is still on Amazon since I think it was around 1995. Okay, so what has all this got to do with today's theme about we all have 24 hours allotted to us, and how do we use those 24 hours to gain success or plan for failure by doing nothing with the time? First of all, we have to learn what is the definition of success. I mean, some think it means to gain wealth or power or money or influence or something like that. No, that's not what the meaning of success is. Look it up yourself. I did this for you. Success is defined as the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. So to be successful for your 24 hours, you need to have or set out an aim, a plan, a purpose for the day. How you're going to spend it will lead to either success or failure for that day. You're only guaranteed 24 hours, believe me, because none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow. So what's your aim or purpose for each 24 cycle that God gives you? That aim or purpose. It means a plan. What's your plan? Even today, at my age, I have a plan and purpose for my life. But I realize that tomorrow may never come. So I think only about the day I'm given, the 24 hours today. I've been a Bible scholar, if you will, for over 50 years, by the way. So some things come back into my mind from studying the Bible. Like it said, give us this day our daily bread. What does that mean? Where did that come from? Give us this day, today, 24 hours, our daily bread. Well, some of you who do know the Bible or read the Bible, Jewish or not, Jews have the Old Testament, which is where this comes from. But the Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and they griped every single day because they were slaves to the Egyptians until Moses led them out of Egypt and headed toward what's called the Promised Land, or a better life. They screeched, "We have no food." So God let manna, which is a bread-like substance, fall from the sky miraculously. And he told the Israelites what he tells you and me today: don't take more than one day's worth of food. They got greedy and they grabbed sacks full of the stuff, and it rotted in the bag overnight, as God said it would. If you take more than I told you to one day, it's going to rot. God wanted them to trust him to meet their needs for one 24-hour day and no longer. Centuries later, Jesus said this: when you pray, ask God to give us this day our daily bread. He wanted to repeat what God told the Israelites, only he wanted to repeat it to us. Give us this day, this 24 hours. God, give us this 24 hours, what we need. And over in Matthew 6, that's in the New Testament, Jesus taught that those needs, not wants, would be delivered to all those who follow him, his disciples, his followers. And he described that in Matthew 6, what those needs being met would be for the 24-hour day. It would be food, clothing, and shelter. So the first thing we need to gather to be successful is to ask God to give us today what we need. Success is seeking a goal, an aim, a plan, a purpose for the day. Another bit of wisdom I learned is from Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 7. The fear of the Lord, meaning respect of the Lord, not fear, I'm afraid of him. The respect for God is the beginning of wisdom, but fools despise wisdom and instruction from God. I see that every day of my life. Fools out there. They don't want God. They don't need God. Who cares about God? Church, nah, it's all fake. The Bible, come on, it's a fairy tale. Well, I decided long ago that I didn't want to be a fool. I knew internally that I needed to seek out God's wisdom, and he wrote it all down in what we call the Bible, which is the Old and New Testament. So every day when I get up, I take a shower, and before I leave my bedroom to go get a coffee or an egg or a bagel or whatever, or to McDonald's for a burrito, I ask God to lead me in my thinking for today, 24 hours ahead of me. He promises to do that because he wrote this in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't depend on your own understanding of things. Seek his will in all that you do, and he will show you which path to take. Who doesn't want to know which path to take for the day? Otherwise, you're kind of going out into a whirlwind, and wherever it lands you, that's where you are. To me, that is wisdom. I can wreck my psyche by trying to understand what is happening in the world today, or by being depressed over the pending gloom and doom of COVID-19, or a host of other things which I have no control over, neither do you. Or I can seek out God's will, and he promises to show me which path to take. Go down that road, go down that road. So, pushing your way through doors that are closed is a foolish, stupid approach to life. I've done it. I know. I learned the hard way. When I saw a door, I kicked it open. And then halfway out the door, I'm saying, oh, I made a big mistake. Lord, can you help me out? I then read where I can do nothing without God. Oh, sure, I can do anything I want to on my own without God, but I learned there are consequences to doing things on my own. For example, if I choose to smoke, the consequences are written right there on the cigarette pack, right? My father died at age 62. Why? Because he chose to smoke 4 packs of Camel cigarettes a day after ripping the filters off and throwing them away. And my brother died at age 69, but suffered from throat cancer and surgeries for 23 years. The poor guy had to go through all kinds of pain, surgeries, operations, you name it. And then he still chose to smoke. And then he developed something called multiple myeloma, which is really a bone cancer. And that took him out in under 3 years. So now I'm 8 years older than my brother, and I'm 15 going on 16 years older than my father. Why? I quit. Now, the book of John, chapter 15, verse 5, tells me this, tells you this too. Jesus said this, I'm the vine, you are the branches. So, who needs the vine to survive are those who seek me out. And I will be with them, and they will be very fruitful. And then he says this, apart from me, not connected to me, the vine, they can do nothing. So I learned early on, I can do nothing really without being attached to that vine. So every day I realize that I can do absolutely nothing, meaning anything meaningful, if I do it on my own and don't seek out God to give me the wisdom to do things like this video today. Back in 2007, I went through one of many rough times and finally asked God, God, you wrote a book. It's called the Bible. And you must have wanted humans like me to read it and understand what you are trying to tell us. So tell me or show me. I read it, Lord, but frankly, I don't really get it. I don't understand it. Why? Show me. So I came across Psalm 119:18. And it enlightened me. It says this, Lord, Open my eyes, my spiritual eyes, so that I can see the wonderful truths of your instructions. Open my eyes so that I can see. That was my aim, my goal, my plan for that 24-hour period. And let me tell you a secret. Within 2 weeks, I'm telling you, 2 weeks, God decided he's going to open my spiritual eyes so that I can actually see what it was that he wanted me to see. He basically said this, John, if you really want to see things, you have to have spiritual vision and get into my word and study it. If you put in the time, I'll show you what I'm telling anyone who wants to invest some of their 24 hours a day to reading my word and studying it out. I realized that out of 24 hours, I spent a bunch of it, wasted. I wasted minutes and I wasted hours. I would be wasting minutes and hours watching TV or laying outside in the sun. So why couldn't I spend some time out of my 24 hours to read what God had wanted me to see when he had 40 men over 3 continents, over 1,500 years, write down the words that he put into their head so that we, you and I, could read it hundreds and thousands of years later. I began to comprehend what God wanted me to know, and I've been able to write more books as a result of studying his words. So when I watch the news or read some blurb about world happenings, COVID-19, whatever, I can see how people just seem to give up and go into a fear mode. Then I read Hebrews 13:6, where I'm told this, the Lord is my helper. So I will have no fear. What can mere people do to me? It says. What can mere people do to me? They can do nothing. That tells me that God's the only one who can take a life anyway, or allow it to be hampered or taken by the devil. How do I know that? Because back in the Old Testament book of Job, I read where Satan told God, your servant Job is only loyal to you because you've blessed him so much. Let me deal with him, and I'll show you that he's not that loyal. And God said so that we could learn from Job's experience. This is what trials and testing is all about, by the way, to pass it on. God said in Job 1:12, okay, very well. And everything that Job has is in your power, but on the man himself, do not harm him physically. So Satan was all happy about that, that's for sure. And he took an awful lot from Job, but he wasn't happy that Job still worshiped God. So in Job chapter 2, Satan went before God again. He said, yeah, but Job would denounce you if I was allowed to harm his physical health. God says, you can do that, but do not take his life. So God can allow Satan to meter out health issues, even death, but only if God allows it. So again, who am I to fear? Mortal man? Satan himself? No. You may ask, well, same thing I asked. Well, why do people murder others, Lord? And sometimes in horrible, horrible ways. I'm sure you've asked that. Some people turn away from God and don't want to get involved with God because they say, why would he allow that to happen? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because wisdom is found in the good book. So I then discovered that God told Jewish Pharisee, actually Jesus told it to him in John 8:44. He said to the Pharisee, you are, get this now, you are of your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. So wisdom comes to those who seek it from God's word. Jesus was telling us that those who do not follow his teachings and those who do not know Jesus as their Lord and Savior, they don't belong to God, the Heavenly Father. They don't belong to God's family. They belong to their father, the devil, like that Jewish Pharisee. If then they belong to their father, the devil, why would God not allow Satan to take their life or meter out other bad things to them? He would. You then might ask what I asked again. Well, God, why do good people People who do claim Him as their Lord and Savior, why do they have to go through bad times or bad health problems? I then discovered 1 Corinthians 10:13, where Jesus tells his followers this. He says the trials that you will go through are no different than what others experience, but God is faithful, so he will not allow your trial to be more than you can handle or stand. When you're tested, he will show you a way out so that you can make it through that trial. That's all good news to me. So I learned we're all going to go through a trial, a time of testing. Everybody does. But there's a reason that we do it, and it's all good, believe it or not. So then I read in the book of James, chapter 1 and verse 2, where we should be happy when a test or trial comes our way because it's a learning experience. It's where God actually is working with us and in us to make us stronger, to see if we will quit following him. But if we quit following him, we don't lose our salvation. If you're saved, you're going to go to heaven. But some people get out of the faith completely. They just say, I'm discouraged, I quit. What happens through a trial is that we gather good insight while going through that time of testing, and we become stronger for it, and we end up trusting God even more. James, the brother of Jesus, said this, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." Why is it a joy? Well, it's a joy because we get to then say, Lord, if we have to go through a trial or a time of testing, then there's something that you want me to know or learn from that we would never know unless we go through the trial. Okay, here comes Johnny's trial. Here's Johnny. In December of 2020, I developed a cyst right here in my lacrimal duct, which is a tear duct in my right eye. I had it checked out December of 2020. Wasn't that long ago, right? It turned out to be cancer, lymphoma. Oy vey. Devastating? Yeah. My first thought was, well, it looks like cancer is going to kill me. Cancer is what's going to take me out off the planet. Long story short, I went through chemo. I had 4 spinal shots of chemo. Those are painful. I had 2 PET scans, bunch of MRIs, and now in August of 2021, I have a full head of hair again, and I'm in total remission. I had 2 PET scans. The last one showed no lymphoma anywhere in my body. Ta-da! So why did I have to go through that cancer? Well, it caused me to write another book about going through all the steps from diagnosis to remission so that others who will get the news, the diagnosis, you have cancer, can know what the steps are. And along life's journey, since then, I've met 4 others who've gone through cancer, who are going through some of those steps right now. And we can relate to each other on a similar basis. And I can and I do encourage them to keep a positive attitude, which I finally had after that depression bout back in 93 and 94. And there's another reason why I had to go through that trial of lymphoma, but I can't say what it is right now because it's going to be a really good thing. And maybe I'll share that with you in a later video. Now, when first diagnosed last year, my own understanding led me to defeatism. So I said, well, I'm going to go sell my house and go get a rent. I figured, well, I should sell the house, get the money from the sale, set it aside for my kids so that when I check out soon, then they won't have to sell the house and they can split the cash for all the stuff that I have, which wasn't a big deal. House, automobiles were paid for, no liens on them, none of that lease stuff. But once I discovered that I was not going to die, at least not now, I decided to buy another house, this time bigger and all brick, to keep the hurricanes and maybe tornadoes from crushing my former wooden frame type house. The new house would need a lot of work, And God decided to give me the strength and stamina and the wisdom to get everything done, including installing like an electric fireplace and mantle. I did it myself in the family room, or tiling the kitchen floor in ceramic tile, or expanding the kitchen from 10 by 12 to 23 by 12. And I loaded water heaters and junk into a trailer, big heavy water heaters. And I brought it to the dump all by myself. Somehow I got all the stamina and strength I needed to get the job done, and gained about $80,000 in equity already in August. Now, the new house also gave me a large extra room where my YouTube studio now is. I also built my own teleprompter in the studio. I built it for like under $250. You can build one too. All you have to do is go find my video. Okay, plug accepted. The point is that when each 24 hours is given to you and to me, we should have goals, aims, plans set for those 24 hours. Sleep is essential too, but the other, let's say 16 hours, some of them sleep all day, I don't know. But those 16 hours should really be plans, aims to be successful for the day. Success for today leads to more successes for tomorrow, or next month, or next year. You know, football players that are on these, my favorite team now, Tampa Bay Bucks. Football players like Tom Brady. He didn't get there overnight. He's still a Super Bowl champ for the Bucks as he was for the New England Patriots. How did he do that? How does he stay winning at 43 or 44 years old? Because way back when, he learned this 24 hours I have. I can exercise, I can do right, I can plan, I can set my aim and my goals to be a great football player. He has always been, he's known as the GOAT, the greatest. Again, he didn't just learn how to do that overnight. He used his 24 hours wisely, and that's why he's a tremendous success. And by the way, wealthy. I think he's worth like $450 million right now. Drives a Ferrari, I hear. Anyway, to do nothing all day is to waste the time that God has given us, and God has not planned for anybody to do nothing or to fail. In fact, he said in the Old Testament book of Jeremiah, the prophet, in Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." That's what God's plans are for your life and mine. It's not, I know what the devil's plans are, but see, he has to go and ask God, can I go mess with John Tyler? And God has to say, yes, I'll let you run through a trial right now, because he can gain some wisdom or he can fail. That's why trials are good. All we have to do is seek God out and ask for his wisdom each day and let him direct our path for the 24 hours. That's success, which is the accomplishment of an aim, a goal, or a purpose. By contrast, just so you know, the definition of failure is this: the omission or occurrence or performance, the omission of occurrence or performance. It's omitting doing something. That's failure. The inability or lack of desire to perform a duty is another definition found in Merriam-Webster's dictionary. A fracturing or giving up under stress. People give up all day long under stress, or just because they have no drive, no ambition. Do you do nothing because that's the planned failure, the planned omission of performance to get something accomplished during your allotted 24-hour day? What will you choose to do tomorrow morning? It's your 24 hours to choose. Choose success or choose failure. What do you intend to do? That's the question. I know what I do. I'm going to get up and do my routine, which again is go take the shower, and never leave that bedroom without first seeking out God's wisdom and path for me for that day. That's success to me. And, I'm in relatively good health right now. That's success. Did I plan that? I kind of did in a way because my attitude was always positive. I never got sick going through chemo, never. So that was the good Lord getting me through the trial, like he said he would in 1 Corinthians 10:13. And then it was a constant prayer to say, well, Lord, it looks like you're going to get me out of this thing. So what's my next step? I'm in the house. That was my next step, apparently. And he gave me out of the blue from cancer, where I couldn't walk to the bathroom after the chemo, 100 feet, to the strength to go load up water heaters. In fact, I installed a new water heater myself in a crawl space. Try that out at my age. So he allowed me to have the strength and stamina to do all that stuff. Why? That's how I plan to spend my 24 hours. Not giving up, not doing nothing, not sitting in front of Judge Judy all day long and watching TV. I always have a goal, an aim, a purpose for the day. Today's purpose and goal was doing this video. I did it. So with that, I'll say see you later. And I hope that you set out for yourself a plan, an aim, a goal. You only have 24 hours. With that cancer thing setting in, I could have been a goner months ago. Who knows? You don't have any luck on life. Nobody's guaranteed 70, 80, 90, 100 years. Nobody. Some die young. Some die real young. Some go out on the highway and have an accident. You're not guaranteed anything but today's 24 hours. And not even all of those. You never know. So plan your day. Start in the morning. That's when you wake up. You plan your 24 hours and you will be a success for the day. See you next time.